delighted to have Medtronic here. Medtronic is a local employer here in the Twin Cities. Really founded, I believe, out of the founder's garage back in the late 50s or early 60s. And when you think about medical device technology, it's really incredible what Medtronic has been able to be done. So again, we're really thankful to have each of them. What they're going to do is just give a brief overview of their roles in Medtronic, and then we will have some breakout sessions so that you can speak more one-on-one with some of the presenters here today. So I'm going to turn it over to Lee Bailey at this time and let her introduce the team.
Perfect. And actually, I'm going to kick it over to Milu, who is our senior program manager from our guide network. And so Milu, you can give a quick overview of our organization, and then we'll have our presenters go through and introduce themselves.
Sounds good. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Milu Ebert. I'm a senior manager for our diversity networks at Medtronic, and I particularly support our Medtronic Women's Network and our Pride Network. And I'm here to talk to you about a little bit about what Medtronic is doing to advance ID&E within the organization. So I wanted to start by sharing, so Medtronic actually has something that we call our ID&E report that we launch every single year. And one of the main things and commitment that we share there is our unwavering commitment to inclusion, diversity, and equity, which really means that we are constantly working and intentionally working towards zero barriers to opportunity within Medtronic, but also trying to create a culture where all employees belong, are respected, feel valued for who they are, and also for the life experiences that they bring and contribute to the organization. We also know that, equity starts beyond our workplace. And so, as you can see, one of our main focuses is also looking at our communities that we serve and what are we doing outside Medtronic to really have an impact greater than just within our employees and our organization. So we know that equity starts beyond just our workplace, and we must find and play a key role in addressing all those systemic inequities in our communities if we really hope to make a meaningful difference within our organization. So our vision is to be internally and externally recognized in inclusion, diversity, equity, as a global leader in healthcare. And that vision is really reflected on all our strategic pillars, which involve the individual. So when we look at our employees, for example, we make sure that everyone in the organization, from individual contributors all the way to our CEO, Jeff Martha, have ID&E goals and action plans that are responsible and accountable role models. We also look at the company. What is the company doing to really ingrain ID&E in our DNA and in what we do? So, examples of that, recently Medtronic just launched something that we call MAPS, which is an opportunity where we pay upfront tuition for people at Medtronic who want to pursue an education. And it can be an undergrad degree, it could be your first degree, it could be your second degree. And Medtronic is paying upfront full tuition for that, which is really amazing. Other things that we're doing is we're investing a lot in AI so that we can be more equitable and really remove barriers and biases from our recruiting processes. So for example, we're moving away from just saying, okay, people need to have, a background in these or educational background, like that has to be this way. And we're moving towards skills-based hiring. So we're looking at what are some transferable skills, and is this person have the right skills and motivation and willingness to learn the business? And then we're picking these people and hiring them and promoting them and development with the organization. So we're really investing in anything we can do to make sure that we are providing equal opportunities for the new candidates and even like our candidates within the organization to advance them. And then when we think about communities, we want to amplify our our impact beyond just Medtronic. So, we invest, and we just won an award not too long ago. We were number 3 and number 4 on the Diversity Inc. Rankings. That's an index that, we apply. It's a big survey that we participate, and we were number 3 and number 4 on diversity supplier, which means, we're making sure that we're providing opportunities also when we are having contracts with our suppliers, and making sure, like, I think not too long ago, we had some big story in South Africa because we were supporting women's, run business that was also having a big impact in the communities and advancing not just women in the community, but impacting the economic outcomes and improvements of that community. So we're always focused, not just on the individual, but also the organization and outside the organization. And then what we hope to achieve with all these is really become a place where, we foster belonging. We have a culture of belonging. We also reflect the communities we serve. Medtronic is in 152 countries all over the world. We have, almost 100,000 employees. And we know that we have a very diverse community of patients that we serve. So we want to make sure that we're reflecting those patients as well. We want to be a company that provides that equity and opportunity of pay within the organization. So we have many, initiatives for policy equal pay, and then improving our policies. Not too long ago, we also improved our benefits when it comes to maternity leaves. And so we're always focused on those kinds of initiatives. And we hope to become a world-class diverse talent organization that really attracts the diverse talent. We know that diverse employees really lead to better outcomes, and diversity of thought, and all that is very welcome and fostered within Medtronic. And of course, have equitable and measurable social impact. So that's a little bit of what we do. And, I could also share, a few of the steps that we've taken in the organization in the last few years. We've always been focused on inclusion and diversity, but I would say in the last 2 years, we've made a lot of progress. Medtronic, one of the biggest things that we did 2 years ago is to hire a Chief of Inclusion and Diversity Officer who reports to our ExCom members. Our ExCom members are the ones who report to our CEO. Shortly after that, we also started having what we call diversity quarterly reviews. We call QDR, where these are meetings where we come, all our networks. So for example, the Medtronic Women's Network will come in and we will present to our CEO and all the ExCom members and our chief HR about what are some things that we are doing to move the needle when it comes to representation of minorities in the organization. So what are we doing to promote women, to attract women, to retain women? And we also share and showcase our hubs, our networks. So we have multiple functional and location-based hubs. And we also serve as the amplifying voice of what the community is facing. So if we see that there are challenges for talent, for example, or any barriers, those are meetings where we share those with our ExCom members, our CEO, and we come up with intentional solutions and partnerships. And we also ask for funding if we need to fund a big initiative. Another thing that we've done that I think is pretty remarkable and not many companies have done, we have moved to something called the leader-led model. So I talked about how we are making sure that everyone in the organization is accountable. Well, we want to start with our top leaders. So the leader-led model, what it does is in the past, our network chairs used to be the ones who come and reported at QDR of, the specific things that we were doing to move the needle, to advance representation within Medtronic. And now it's our function leaders, our presidents of the OU organizations and portfolios who are coming to these QDRs and saying, here's my commitment, here's my action plan, this is what I'm doing to move the needle, and this is how we're partnering with the rest of the organization and our networks to really amplify the voice of the community and make a difference. So all those things, and actually here's like what the leader-led model is, are things that we have been working very proactively. And of course, and just to end, I know we have just a little bit of time, but we make sure that everybody is an accountable role model, and we make sure that we provide examples, practical examples of what that zero barrier, looks like in practice. So zero barriers can be, a passionate employee whose allyship is removing hurdles for women pursuing engineering careers. Zero barriers can be a scholarship that enables someone to go to college and end generational poverty within their family. Zero barriers could be, the supplier diversity program that not only increases revenue for women-owned businesses in South Africa, but also creating local jobs and stimulating the economic impact in the community. And zero barriers also means for our employees, joining an ERG board or volunteering in some of the events and initiatives that we're having. So that's a little bit of a summary of what Medtronic is doing and how we're advancing ID&E.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Milo. I really appreciate it.
Can I just enter in here quickly? This is really, really exciting information. I know a lot of organizations talk about this, but are really not doing anything. And Medtronic has always been a leader in the Twin Cities and a good place to work, and it is incredible to actually see the things that they are doing and how leadership is holding almost every employee accountable. And so I loved the quarterly diversity reviews, the upfront tuition. These are just a couple of really exciting things. And I'd really like to just commend Medtronic for really walking the talk and having it not just be something that they put on their website or say that they're doing, but really doing that.
Thank you.
Okay, so now I think we're going to kick it over to our panelists. We've got 7 Medtronic women that are going to be speaking to the group, and then I think we're going to go into the breakouts. So why don't we start with Tamika Spears? Tamika, do you want to go ahead and, are you okay going first? I just called you out, sorry.
I am, I absolutely am. Let me go to screen 2, share, and oops, went back too far. Can you all see that screen okay? Can you all hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. All right. Hi, everybody, and thank you so much for having me today. My name is Tamika Spears, and I am currently a senior IT program manager of inclusion, diversity, and equity programs. So I'm just really happy to be here today. So I'd like to start my story off with a couple of questions, some rhetorical ones, of course. Have you ever, just think back, or even currently, have you ever given your time and energy and all you've ever had to an employer only for that employer to take you for granted? And this is not Medtronic, by the way, from Medtronic companies. Have you ever sat at your desk or stood on an assembly line or at a cash register and just thought there has to be a better way for me? If you answered yes, then we have something in common, ladies. Throughout our careers, throughout my career, I've had some really good highs, but they started off with what my grandmother would say are some lowly lows. The thing about my lowly lows is that they seem to have a way to ignite me. And I hope after you hear my story today that you'll let your lows ignite you. At 21 years of age, I became a single mom. I was barely making enough money to pay for childcare. I was a college dropout, and I was just really terrified out of my mind. I was working an office job, barely making enough money to do anything with again. But I specifically remember mustering up enough strength to walk into the HR director's office and asking him, what do I need to do in order to get a $1 raise? And very arrogantly and in a dismissive tone, he said, get a degree. So I'm not one to hide secrets on my face. So I'm in there frowning up. And I'm like, you mean to tell me I need to go get a 4-year degree, rack up thousands of dollars in student loans to make a measly $1? I knew then at that moment that that wasn't right for me. And I knew that that job wasn't right for me. So I found another one. I worked until I found another one. After several dead-end jobs, I found my happy place. I was at a nonprofit organization in human resources. I was excelling at giving managers advice on how to treat their employees, how to relate to them, train them, how to help them tap into their potential. I was conducting new hire orientation and coordinating benefits. And for a while, I was really riding high. Well, part of my job, ladies, involved screening resumes, deciding who gets considered for an interview, basically who's going into the yes pile and who's going into the no pile. Well, one day it hit me, and it hit me really hard, that my resume and that my application look a lot like those people that were in the no pile. The only differentiator was that degree requirement. And I remember thinking at that moment, this is a nice job, Tamika, but you could do more. You could earn more. But if this small nonprofit here in Memphis, Tennessee is turning people away of a degree requirement, what is the rest of the country doing? So I made up in my mind then that I would pursue my degree. And while pursuing that degree in that very same role, I saw a few positions that really piqued my interest. And I applied for those jobs because I now had the skills and the knowledge from the company. I had been there at that time of almost 5 years. I had worked with our clients, and so I knew I could do that work. But then I hit a low again. I hit a very lowly low, what they call it. For every job that I applied for, my HR manager, who I had worked closely with for the past 5 years, rewrote those job requirements, deeming me ineligible for them because I did not have that college degree. And keep in mind, I was just a few months away from obtaining that degree. I was hurt, I was angry, I was disappointed, and honestly, I felt helpless. But I knew in my heart, and I knew in my mind this time, that also there is something better out there for me. So I politely gave my 2 weeks notice, and I stepped out on faith. And you all know what that is, right? What faith is. It's stepping out, not knowing where you're going to land. So I had my daughter, my cute little Toyota Corolla, my large studio apartment, and a little cushion for my 401k. And for months, I tried to get a job, but nothing was coming through. My money was about to run out, and I was feeling like I was starting to tread very low again. So I started to doubt myself and second guess myself. You shouldn't have quit without having a job. What were you thinking? I was scared about ashamed rather, what my family was going to say. That girl went and quit that job. She got that baby over there. She don't know what she's doing. And then I was telling myself, you should have stayed. You should have stayed until you graduated. But then the Spirit of God spoke to me one day and said, call Randstad. And so I was like, yep, Tamika, you have hit a low. For anybody who doesn't know, Randstad is a staffing agency. But here in the South, I don't know what you all do in the North, we call that a temp agency. And I was like, I'm not working on temp. I just came from 5 years being in an office, being an HR generalist. This working temp is beneath me. How dare you, Holy Spirit? You talking to me? So I let a week or so go by. I think even maybe a second week go by. And the Holy Spirit said again, call Randstad. So begrudgingly, and I mean that, I should have put that in all caps. Maybe that should have been on the screen. I called Randstad, and y'all know they had the nerve to answer the phone. So I talked to them, told them where I had come from, and they said, can you be here tomorrow, Tamika? And I said, yes. So on a Thursday afternoon, you all, I went to Randstad. And on Monday morning, 3 days later, I was at Medtronic, and I've been here ever since. Waiting for me at Medtronic was opportunity after opportunity, growth upon growth, plaques and recognition, tuition reimbursement that they just talked about, in relationships that I have for a lifetime, and so much more. Medtronic had been my dream place, one of those employers that I had applied to for several years but didn't get a response from. So from my story today, I could have told you about how I obtained that bachelor's and master's degree, how I went on to get several certifications as well, but those aren't the things that I think about when I think about my story. While I am proud and I am still very humble of all of the promotion and accolades I've received, those aren't the things that I think about when I think about success. Trying to get to the next slide. Those pivotal moments in my career have been those lows while I was able to examine myself, question my purpose, evaluate the environment I was in, dare to hope, and then act on it. It is the times when I've listened to the voice within and I am obedient to those voices, where I honor those voices by making better choices. That's when I then tend to thrive. I've moved into new roles that I didn't want. I've worked with people that I didn't want to work with, all in order to improve myself. I've operated outside of my comfort zone, pushed against my own boundaries, like public speaking, in order to grow. So my call to action for each one of you today, not that you asked me for one, you know you don't work for me, but my call to action for each one of you is that wherever you are today in your career, that you trust yourself and you believe in yourself and you tap into whatever power that you believe in to make that leap of faith. Don't be like the African impala. It's an animal that has the ability to jump, leap, and soar above anything that's trying to take it down. But its one flaw, though, is that it will not jump unless it knows where its feet will land. And faith doesn't work like that. You're not always going to know the outcome. You won't always have a plan B. But if you make that leap, just know that wherever you land, it is going to work out for you. I think I'm at time now, and I just want to say thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tamika. I wrote down, let your lows ignite you. I feel like that's a mantra that that resonates with me. So I'm sure it resonates with others on the call as well.
I hope
Appreciate
so.
you sharing. Yes. Excellent. Okay, moving on. Zulia Hernandez. Zulia, are you ready to rock and roll?
Yes, and you're so spot on, right? When I actually wrote that down too, let your lows ignite you. And I'm kind of thinking through your story. I don't have slides prepared, so I'm going to speak to my journey, but I did love your emphasis there with those key words, and that definitely allowed me to kind of think back on just my journey and how all those low points are really what drives us to success. So thanks for sharing that. I love it. And I definitely on my book of quotes from now on. So with that said, my journey really started back 43 years ago, right? When my parents left their homeland of Cuba, one a welder, and my mom was basically a homemaker, right? As you all have heard stories about those that travel from, other countries, especially communist countries, into, the U.S., it's just the land of opportunity. And we know it's not really our parents looking for that opportunity, but more for the opportunity they want to provide for their children. So that was kind of like the first low, right? Coming to a new country, not even knowing the language. I mean, Sesame Street basically raised me up until school age. And so, there comes the challenges of kind of learning the language and fitting in, right? Fast forward to, high school graduation. Make it into, a four-year university locally where I live in Miami, hoping to, one day after my 2 years of college, expand out and travel somewhere else and really have that four-year university experience outside of my city. Well, that's when, the universe just had a different plan for me and decided to bless me with type 1 diabetes, right? So at the age of 19, not really knowing what is diabetes. I've never even had chicken pox in my life. This was just one of my lowest points in my life. As you all know, it's all about your support system. And I just had an amazing support system with family and friends. There's no Google back then. So really, it was all about books and resources that I was provided to get me through that period. It really took about 2 weeks for me to educate myself and go, all right, well, I came into this 2-year, to get my associate's degree before I really decide what's going to be my major and my road for my future career. And that's really when I decided, dietetics is something that goes along really well with that diagnosis. And I felt I can definitely not only help myself, but help others living with diabetes and really letting them see that path to, this is not a death sentence, right? People now, this day and age should not even see the complications we saw years ago. So that was my drive to really pursue that career in dietetics. Well, again, I'm fortunate enough to make a program of 500 individuals. I got one of the 10 seats where you basically are able to join an accelerated program to graduate already with your hours of experience and land my first job at a hospital, right? Only to realize, ooh, wow, this is the salary of a dietitian. And, back then it was in the low 20s, and, you'd look at nurses and you're like, they make a lot more and go to less schooling. So it was a little bit of a shocker for me. And, just looking back at what my parents came to this country doing, my mother retired making $13,000 a year, right? So that to me was still a huge accomplishment. As time progressed, I basically came in contact with Medtronic a year after diagnosis, right? Where I was just blown away by not only the Medtronic representative that introduced me to an insulin pump, but it really changed my life. And again, that's another point where a pivotal moment in my life where I was like, I want to do that. So, Tamika, you spoke of a plan B and really pursuing what you want. That was my North Star. My North Star was getting to Medtronic. And I did arrive here early, probably in my late 20s. So it's a long road to retirement. That's always been the goal, to retire here. So, it took a couple different paths to get here. Obviously, as a dietitian, you have an opportunity to expand your experience in other areas of dietetics, whether it's public health, whether it's clinical in a hospital or other areas. It really allowed me to gain the experience early in my career to move around to different opportunities to really develop that foundation I needed to pursue another avenue. Well, here came another low where I got married and divorced within a year after a 10-year relationship, and I was a new single mom with a 3-month-old, and my divorce attorney was just like, you need to go back to school and really, educate yourself and get a degree in order to, make more money. Well, long story short, I was called by Medtronic after having my resume on monster.com and was offered an opportunity to interview. Sadly, I did not get that position the first time I interviewed for it. It just so happened that I was pregnant with my second child, and I had just shared with the rep, which was a friend, that I was 8 weeks pregnant. So unfortunately, I was passed up in that opportunity. But again, my North Star was still Medtronic. A few months went by, and I actually got another call after I delivered my child and was asked to re-engage in the opportunity to join the Medtronic team. And listen, if this is the first time you all hear the name Medtronic, to me, it's not only the product I use and how it's changed my life and allowed me to live a healthy life living with diabetes and also helping others to do the same. But the Medtronic mission really is alleviating pain, restoring health, and extending life. And that's what I do every single day. As I joined the Medtronic team and had the opportunity to touch more patient lives, that invigorates you, to help others and really expand indications to reach other people to live a healthier life. And it's really about living that mission every day. As a young clinician in Medtronic, I really worked in that field position directly with patients and customers on a daily basis. Not the easiest job, but I felt like, hey, I didn't have to go back to school, but I was able to reach that North Star in this role. And again, one of the things I can probably provide as a piece of advice is always look for ways to stretch yourself beyond your role, right? One of the things I've learned is the last thing you want to be is that person that says, that's not my job, right? because when you obviously stretch outside of what you're hired to do, you have the opportunity to grow and grow into perhaps some direction that you may not have ever anticipated that you would take. So for me, that those opportunities allowed me to, take that next step into a management role where I now lead a team of about 11 clinicians on the South Florida team. And, I'm happier than ever to be part of Medtronic. And, again, as you expand and stretch yourself into other opportunities, there's always more doors that open up. So I'll leave you with that ending. Again, just, keep those doors open and keep stretching yourselves.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Zulia. I agree with the comments that are being posted in the chat. Excellent life advice and work advice as well. All right, Julie Angelini, are you ready to go?
Absolutely, sure.
Awesome, thank you.
And I will share, I'm a visual learner and talker, so I'll share my one slide here as I talk about my career journey. These are tough ones to follow, so thanks for sharing your stories. My background is engineering. So I, if you can see my screen okay, graduated with an undergraduate degree in engineering from Northwestern University in 2006. And I had actually participated in a co-op program at the Food and Drug Administration. So I was able to go, work there for a quarter, come back to school on and off for a couple of years. It was a great experience working in the real world, but at the time, and I'm not sure if this has changed at the FDA, but it was, a diverse set of interns that were young and then a lot of older white men. And so it was very tough to see that lack of diversity, that disconnect with, where I would find myself outside of an internship experience at the FDA. So I definitely knew I wanted to find a more balanced workplace in the future. And luckily, once I graduated, I was able to get an internship at Medtronic. And this really felt like an achievement for me because I had, like others, interviewed for co-op positions at Medtronic, for other internships or full-time roles, didn't get hired for several opportunities there, but knew Medtronic medical devices, helping patients was where I wanted to be. So it was just, one intern hiring manager phone interview that really turned it around and made it happen and got me that opportunity. And I did enjoy my internship so much that Medtronic, one of the great things about their internship program is it's a foot in the door. You get to show off your skills and your, really drive in 2 or 3 months. And then they work hard to convert those internships to full-time positions. So I had interviewed for 2 different full-time roles and got one of them, and then continued on as a reliability engineer. And one of the other things I did early on at Medtronic was leaned into opportunities to participate in the ERGs. So employee resource groups, kind of along the lines that Milou was talking about, Society of Women Engineers. So a group within Medtronic that would support each other, share goals, share experiences, network. So a colleague asked me if I wanted to step in and be a treasurer for that local group at our site. And I said, sure, why not? And little did I know that would grow into additional roles within the Twin Cities within SWENET, and then ultimately a global role coordinating across sites that had Society of Women Engineers groups within Medtronic. So just one of those things of leaning in, and it leads to an opportunity later on. From there, I had moved into, in 2010, a design engineering role. And so in both of these roles, I still was like young, a go-getter. I was like leaning in as Zulia just referenced to some of those stretch opportunities. I was assisting the team with developing onboarding information so that folks come in, I was new, I knew there was a lot I didn't know, helping others to get up to speed quickly and make those connections with the organization. And it was that time where I also leveraged an earlier version of the tuition reimbursement program that Medtronic had, and did some evening work to get my master's degree at the University of Minnesota. Again, it was a little bit, me just saying, I think this is going to help me grow in the future. And Medtronic as a company, definitely, I wanted to leverage the support that they provide in terms of tuition reimbursement. So was able to do that in the evenings. And another internal program that Medtronic has related to engineering is DRM, Design for Reliability and Manufacturability. It's a certification around how to do product development in a way that makes our products, really meet user needs and be robust and able to be manufactured. So I got a certification called a black belt, kind of a leadership position within that program, more so because it resonated with me, the thought process that it was being used. But little did I know, again, it would help me in the future in my career, which I'll talk to in a second. And then lastly, Medtronic around 2011 transitioned to a full women's network. So took our ERGs, which were happening across the sites, and created a global structure to really support women holistically. And because I was the global chair of SWENET at the time, I was able to step into that Medtronic Women's Network global role as well. So again, just like lots of opportunities and doors opened because I had taken a small treasurer role within one of my first years at Medtronic. So a lot of good things happening in my career, and then things started happening in my personal life, right? So got married and had my first child. And it was at that point where I said, whoa, I need to back up and slow down a little bit. My priorities are changing. I took the full maternity leave that I could. I did my best to position the team I was supporting at the time with what needed to happen over those 3 months, but really wanted to shift my priorities and, in my words, coast a little bit in my career. I didn't want to look for something new. I wanted to just step back and meet my minimum requirements, but really focus on the new child, right? So it was really, that first year after my son was born that things were calming down a bit. And I did then say, okay, I'm ready to try something new. And these kind of the leadership roles that I had taken through ERGs and through these certification processes had really taught me that I like leading others. I kind of have a strength in that area. And I wanted to move into more of a program or people management type of role, but I really had no idea where to start or, what I might be qualified for. And really throughout my career, I've used informational interviews a ton to, talk to people that I know, understand what do they look for in their group? What skills do they look for? What qualifications do they have? Any openings? Who else should I talk to? And really, through that process of informational interviews, which took several months, it ultimately led me to someone suggested I talk to a director in post-market quality who had an open role. And I ended up moving into post-market quality as a program manager. So not something that I was looking to move out of product development into the post-market space. But again, I was kind of just open-minded to what roles I could consider and what networks, what my network of colleagues and friends suggested might be a good role for me. I also had my second child around that time, later into that role. And right around that time, the director I was reporting to went on sabbatical and tapped me to serve as an acting director. And to me, this is one of those, actually, you'd think it's a high, it's great responsibility to get to be an acting director. It was a bit of a low for me. It was quite emotional. I had two young children at home now, one quite young. And it was the work-life balance was just way off. I was large workload, long hours, coming home late, when it was already bedtime for my daughter. And I just knew that wasn't a role I was interested in longer term, and I needed to make another change. So it was really, again, I kind of stepped back and said, what do I need out of my career? Where do I want to go next? And talk to a lot of my networks and colleagues. And decided that I had spent most of my career in Medtronic's neuromodulation division, and I wanted to try something a little bit new, but I didn't know anyone really outside of neuromodulation. So talked to people who knew people, made some connections, and ultimately found a role in our cardiac implantables division that was leading a DRM core team. So this DRM black belt certification, some of the efforts I put in just because I thought it was interesting and fun and resonated with me, really paid off down the road when I was then asked to deploy that to an organization. And then ultimately, with some organizational change, got actually promoted into a director role where I'm doing some of the things, creating onboarding materials and leading teams to do some of those things that I was really passionate about early on in my career as well. So that's where I am today. And I think, overall, some of my advice there is I couldn't have predicted any of this path of my career. I just leaned into some of those early opportunities as they came, whether it was just a small role in an ERG or a certification or helping to develop onboarding materials. And ultimately, a lot of those things helped me develop skills that I needed later on that I didn't even know I needed. And then using my network to really help make those connections to explore new opportunities. And then just not giving up, like others have said, I interviewed multiple times for multiple roles, either before I got into Medtronic and after, and was rejected for many roles. So glad that it turned out that way, because I like how the career has progressed, but it's tough not to be discouraged at those points, and just keep looking and exploring and broadening what you think might be a good fit for you, because sometimes that career journey isn't, straight up or in the way that you thought it might be. So yeah, look forward to chatting with you guys more during the breakouts.
Thank you so much, Julie. I know, Tamika, you like mirrored my comment. It's so great to hear about someone saying I had to reflect on my family life, where I was at personally at home, and make decisions in my career to compensate for that. And that can be really hard as a woman, especially as a working mom. So I appreciate that sentiment. All right, Claire, are you ready to go? Yes, awesome. Thank you.
Can you hear me now? Awesome. Okay, let me share the right screen. All right, you should be seeing the right view now. Okay. Well, thank you for having me. Like I said, my name is Claire Aideen, and I apologize. This is a very busy slide, and I want to commend all of everyone else who has very impressive presentations. So I've definitely taken notes on my future presentations. So just a heads up that you can still be learning and developing at any point in your career. I grew up actually on a farm in northern Minnesota. You can see a little picture here. This is myself and my brother and my dad and my grandpa planting a tree for the farm's centennial celebration, and that was in 1997. The farm is still there. The tree did not make it, so that's okay. But that was just I include this picture because the farm and the home that I grew up on are very important to me, and our central family is central to everything that I do. I planned to go to college when I was in school. I don't think I ever thought about not going to college. My dad's a farmer, my mom is a nurse, and I was interested in career paths that were adjacent to healthcare. I don't love the sight of blood, so I wasn't never particularly interested in being a nurse. And I was sitting in school one day as a junior in high school, and a local community college came to present about career opportunities, and one of the women presenting said she was planning to pursue a major in this role called biomedical engineering. And I honestly did not ask that many questions about it, but I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever heard and decided that was what I was going to do too. Ultimately, I went to the University of Minnesota to pursue biomedical engineering. Was very excited to go to the University of Minnesota. I wouldn't say that it was encouraged that I go to the U coming from a small town. I grew up in a town of like 500 people. The cities is a large population. The dorm room that I was, or the dorm building that I was in at the University of Minnesota was actually larger, like had more people in it than my whole town. So, coming from a small town environment, I think it was a pretty daunting step for everyone. I don't think I ever really felt the same way, but even my guidance counselor in high school actually told me not to pursue engineering and not to pursue going to the University of Minnesota because I likely wouldn't be successful there. So I think from the optics from outside, it was that it was challenging. I don't think that I ever really internalized that, though. I was more excited about the potential in the field and was looking forward to trying something new. Ultimately stayed at the U for 4 years and then opted to do a 5-year master's program. So that's where you get a 4-year bachelor's degree and then you stay on 1 more year and you get a master's degree. And I wasn't initially planning to do grad school, but when I was looking at the opportunities to go back to grad school, I just thought if I could do it in 1 year, less tuition costs. So, and then I wouldn't have to come back to school if I didn't need to. So was kind of looking at it from a financial and a practicality perspective there. Ultimately started at a company called EV3 Covidian that has merged with Medtronic, started in R&D, and that was really where I was looking at different types of angioplasty balloon catheters for people who have occluded peripheral arteries. So if you've ever heard of anyone that has like an occlusion in their vasculature in their legs, that's the type of devices we were working on treating. And I went into that role mostly focused on being a new engineer and getting some exposure to how devices are used in hospitals. That was something I've been really interested in college and continued to be as I started my career. Ultimately, when I, after a couple of years working in the research and development role, Boston Scientific reached out and asked if I'd be interested in actually going into what we call the field, or basically going into hospitals and supporting implants for medical devices and any subsequent follow-up or checks that patients need after their implant. And that was a dream that I decided, that was something when I went into that role, I thought that was like the last role I was ever going to be in. Like I was so excited about being in the field. And ultimately it was a really great role. The day-to-day work, I think, is something that I probably won't ever be able to replicate in the office. But I did learn when I was there that the inflexibility of time, really hard to predict, like when your day starts or ends, and also your weekends are sometimes kind of iffy too. Just decided that ultimately I wanted a little bit of that time predictability back, mostly for like going up north and visiting my family, or my husband and I like to travel. So just getting that time control back was important to me, even though the job was really cool. So when I went into that job, was planning to do that for the rest of my life. When I decided that I wanted to do something different, decided to come back into engineering, looking for a way to level set and kind of restart what I was looking for in a career. So came back into Medtronic. We're basically doing work that involves assessing the predictability of our devices, or making sure that our devices work the way we expect them to when patients receive them, and doing the risk documentation work that's required to submit a new device to a regulatory body like the FDA. And in that, I was able to bring some of my field experience and also was able to learn something in a whole new function and space that I hadn't been in before. So kind of continued my trajectory of trying to learn something new while carrying a little bit from my previous experience into it. I started doing a little bit of program management in that role, which is basically doing some functional leadership for an extended group of team members. So owning the work for the quality group that was assigned to a particular project, and then being accountable to the core team, or the group of people that is responsible for getting a product from concept all the way to commercialization. So started doing a little bit of program management work and decided I really liked it, and ultimately took a full-time role supporting more than one team to do that functional program management role. In my current role, I'm a core team leader, and getting to core team leader was a little bit unique for me. So I was a functional core team member, and I had a colleague reach out and say, hey, there's this core team leader role that's going to be opening up. I'd really encourage you to consider it. And I actually pushed back and I was like, I don't really think I'm qualified. Here's all the reasons I don't think I can do it. I don't know finance. I don't have the business acumen. I haven't socialized it. There's, XYZ reasons why I shouldn't do this. And she kind of pushed back on me a little bit and was like, I would really encourage you to just talk to the hiring manager. You don't have to apply, but just maybe talk to the manager. And I kind of blew her off. I kind of told her I would, but then I actually didn't even talk to the hiring manager. And about a couple weeks later, her and I were talking again, and she's like, hey, did you ever meet with the hiring manager? And I was like, no. And then I gave her a whole laundry list of reasons why I didn't qualify for the job again. And she kind of stopped me and just said, if you're not interested in it, that's totally fine. Don't interview, don't apply. But she said, if you're interested, but you just don't think you're qualified, please don't let that stand in the way of going for that job. And so I felt a little guilty about this, full disclosure, because I'm really involved in our diversity work within Medtronic and have been in my whole life. So I really felt like this was me being called to task for not really walking my talk. So I did end up talking to the hiring manager. I did end up interviewing for the job. It is the job I'm now in, but I would just share that wisdom that my friend shared with me, and I can't try to keep sharing with everyone, especially the women in my life, is that, don't let yourself be the reason that you don't go for a job. Let an interview team or something figure that out, but don't let your determination of your qualifications exclude you from going for your next gig. So that would be the wisdom I share at this point in my career. And all of this is my remaining interests and such, but I might have run out of time. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Claire. I think it probably resonates with all of us that we're the first to talk ourselves out of any job posting that we see, all the things that we don't know how to do, knowing full well that our male counterparts think they can do 100% of the things, or they'll figure it out, right? So that's definitely a good lesson to share. I just want to do a quick time check. I know we've got 30 minutes left, and I've got 3 more gals on our panel. Are we good just to give them each 3 to 5 minutes to talk through, and then we can get into the breakout?
Actually, I would love to hear from each of your panelists. And what I would encourage our clients to do is, if you have questions as we go along, pop those into the chat box. And that can kind of, if we do the breakout rooms for just a few minutes, I think that's fine. I just personally love hearing these stories. Karen, what do you think?
I agree 100%. That was going to be my response as well. So take it away, rest of the panelists.
Awesome. All right, will do. Then I will pass it along to Kate Arnebeck. Kate, are you ready to share your story?
Sorry, there we go.
Thanks.
I'm Kate Arnebeck, and I do have a slide that you all can't see. Is it in presentation mode or not? Is it now? No? Oh, I had to dock and undock my computer at work, and it doesn't like me.
It's the story of my life.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. Share. Oh, is it? I don't know. I'll just start over here. Sorry about this.
No problem.
And even the version that it was in would work for us. So
okay. Now, do you see it?
There it is.
There we go. Yep.
Yep.
I'm Kate Arnebeck, and I'm also from northern Minnesota. Grew up on the Iron Range, and one of my first jobs when I was early in college was driving 240-ton dump trucks. It was really fun, but it was swing shift work. And so I definitely knew that wasn't something I was going to want to do the rest of my life, but kind of learned a lot. Definitely the minority being a woman driving a truck, and that was going to continue. I found out throughout my whole career, because I did choose to go into engineering. So I went to the University of Minnesota, got similar advice to Claire, why do you want to go down there? We have great community colleges where you can start off. It's going to be really hard, but I really loved it down there, but you really had to find a community. And again, in mechanical engineering, it was 10% females. So most of my study partners were male. I didn't know a lot of females that were in my classes, but you really had to find that community if you were going to survive and thrive in that area where it was just so big. You would go to the courses, and the lecture halls would be hundreds of students, and it was just really hard to keep up. You had to have your small study groups. So it was a fight. I mean, getting my mechanical engineering degree was not easy for me. I had to work really hard at it, get some help tutoring after hours, but it was such a big accomplishment. I felt like when I finally finished that degree. And, you know, the advice I give a lot of the younger, like high schoolers and stuff is, you know, find those degrees where you know that there can be like a job afterwards, because it's hard to put all that time in and effort in, and then there isn't kind of a path for you. I also took 6 years to go through school to get my 4-year degree, because I was funding it myself. So I did a mix of internships and co-ops, and I did, and it really helped me because then I had, you know, job opportunities when I got out because I had experience. But you know, making money along the way was helpful as well. So you didn't have a lot of loans when I got out of school. And then from there, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with that mechanical engineering degree. So I got a job with a company called Avery Dennison. One product you would know is labels and office products. And they had a leadership development rotational program. And so they would drop you into a manufacturing plant for like 6 to 9 months. And they'd give you a project, and you didn't know any of the people there, have any credibility. And you had to like lead this project. And I just learned so much like through those experiences on how to build those relationships. And again, like find those networks of people that can really help you, because it was really overwhelming, and had to learn quickly, like you're never going to be successful if you're just going to do it all by yourself. So find those people that can coach you and mentor you, and you can trust, and you can cry on their shoulder. And it really needed to be a team effort. I mean, there was one manufacturing plant where one of the people they really needed, I mean, he kept telling me, go away, like, I'm not going to help you. In the end, he ended up being one of my closest friends at the manufacturing plant. He actually still sends me a birthday present on my birthday every year. And he lives out in Massachusetts, and I'm back in Minnesota now. But it was just a really good growth experience for me as kind of a young engineer coming out of college. I also was in like a all-male group, engineering group, and my engineering manager was like pretty old school, and I don't think he thought females should be in the field. So I kind of learned a lot with how to deal with him. It was so bad that I went like my first year not talking to him, and I just found my own. I would only talk to him when I had to, so I found my own path and figured out how to get my projects done. But then when it came to the end, it was my performance review. I found out I was going to get a bad performance review. So I learned how to advocate for myself, and I had a whole PowerPoint presentation deck of everything I did that year. And so he was forced to give me a good review. So it's a good thing to remember that you got to really advocate for yourself as well as you navigate these waters. And then from there, I decided I loved manufacturing, but wanted to do more. So I decided to go get my MBA at Babson. And again, Avery did pay for that degree, which was a really awesome benefit. And again, fraught with kind of, you had to have perseverance. So I was trying to do an executive MBA program so I could get done in 2 years and do it while I worked, because I couldn't afford to just stop working and go to school. And they told me, like, you need 10 years work experience. I only had 4, but I applied anyway, and somehow I got in. I don't know if they needed more women, because again, it was only like 10% of females in my MBA course. And so that really opened the door for me to get into Medtronic. You know, not always a fan of like just getting an MBA to get an MBA, but in this case, it really helped me be able to kind of reinvent myself and move like into a new company that I felt was going to offer a lot more opportunities. So I got a job back at Medtronic, relocated back to Minnesota. I was out in Massachusetts with my last rotation with Avery, and was in global supply chain, which I knew nothing about. So I had gotten a black belt and did a lot of continuous improvement projects on the manufacturing floor. So I had to come up with a story on how was I qualified to go do global supply chain. It was helpful that I had the MBA, but I also, instead of doing continuous improvement on manufacturing equipment, I was going to do continuous improvement on like SAP and transactional processes. It was really scary, I'm not going to lie, because I really did not know how to do that job. So again, had to find kind of that small community of people that could help me learn. And one thing about Medtronic you find is there's so many smart people here, and they're also willing to kind of help and mentor. And there's been a lot of people that have been here like their whole career. And so it was really great to find those people. But as I moved from a manufacturing facility into an office space, you had to do a lot more presentations, and presentation skills, they still are not my strong suit. There's always that like negative voice in my head that's telling me you sound horrible and your message isn't clear and crisp. And that was a tough part to overcome. It's still even hard here to talk to all of you today. One thing I did was through the ERGs that Medtronic has, there was a women's signature event that I went to. And they brought an author in that talked about this book, The Confidence Code. And she was amazing. And it kind of unlocked, it was a kind of big pivotal moment for me in my career that I feel like really helped me out. And so some of the messages that resonated with me in the book was that women's brains are like wired differently than men's, and we ruminate on things, and it just really impacts our confidence. One story she told was they had a group of women and a group of men that took a test, and the first time through they told them that you don't have to answer the question if you don't want to, you can skip it. And so the women skipped a lot more of the questions than the men. And so in the end, the men scored higher than the women. Then they retook the test, the same group of people, and said you have to answer every question. And the women actually scored higher than the men. So just kind of getting this information and learning that like your confidence is 25% inherited only, so you can really change it if you work on it, really just like made me a lot stronger person at work. Which was good. But I did skip over the fact that I did have 2 children while in that job at Medtronic. And so that made things kind of more complicated, you know, trying to balance that time and really advocate for yourself. And so instead of having kind of endless hours to be able to pour into my work, I now had to figure out how to do that work-life balance. And again, that was hard. And you had to find a community, again, that could help you outside of work and inside of work. And learn how to advocate for yourself too, to like kind of free up your time. And some of it was just telling yourself like, it's okay. You have to let go at work so that you can do both. So then with that, I decided to kind of reinvent myself again, and I moved from global supply chain, which was much more operational based, like my first role, into new product development. So leading cross-functional teams to go from like a concept to deliver the product into the market. So this requires a lot of presenting. It also, you don't have any direct reports, but you have a team, an extended team of upwards of 150 people that you're trying to like lead them all to like make the same the same set of objectives and like get this out the door. And so it's all through influence, and it was really scary, especially because I felt totally underqualified for this job. And so you're in like leading these meetings. The meetings I led were only about 15 people, 12 to 15 people. But you look around the room and you had all these experts that have been working at Medtronic doing new product development like their whole career. And it's like, and I'm supposed to be leading the team. And it was really scary. Like, what can I possibly bring to the table to help these people? And so I had to get really used to not being like the expert in the room, and finding out what those capabilities I have that I can help that team and bring value. And so the last few years, I've really focused a lot on developing good cultures on the team, like places I would want to work, trying to get to like high performing teams. And it's been really fun. So I might not be the technical expert in the room that's going to go solve the problem, but like, how can I help the team get there and set a clear vision and all of that. So it's been quite a career journey. It's taken a lot of persistence, really have to dig deep into yourself and find that confidence and kind of go to that next level. And when you hit doors that are closed, really using that network and that family, that cohort that you found to figure out a way to open them or step around them is some advice that I have for all of you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kate. I'm sure everyone agrees with me. I think your public speaking and presenting is fantastic. Very conversational. You seem very comfortable. So kudos to you and your growth there.
Thanks.
All right, Juliana, are you ready?
Rule number 1 of Zoom meetings, you have to remember to take yourself off mute. So I am one of the longtime Medtronic people that Kate works with. So I have been at Medtronic for 22 years. Today, I'm a senior principal systems engineer, and it's been a pretty fun fun journey. I'll back up a bit. So I started out as a girl who liked math, usually the only girl in the advanced math classes. But you know, I got pretty used to early living in a man's world, because that really prepared me pretty well for coming up in the future. I got to the end of high school. I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do, but I'm like, well, I like math and science and biology and physics. I think maybe biomedical engineering would be a good combination for those things. So I decided to enroll in biomedical engineering major at Marquette University in Milwaukee, which is where I'm from. And I didn't really know whether I was going to like it, but I decided I was going to take the risk. I was going to try it. And if it turned out that I didn't like it, I would just find some other adjacent major to move into. Got into the classes, realized I did like it. Sophomore year comes around, I heard about the cooperative education program similar to Julie Angelini. I tried to get a co-op job at Medtronic and I was unsuccessful, but I ended up finding a different job at a company that built power plants. And one of the things I learned about that job was that I really liked being an engineer, but I didn't care about power plants. So the next thing I wanted to do was to find something that I'd be more excited about. I have definitely learned in my career that being excited in what you're doing really makes a difference, because it's the people who are excited who are the ones who are going to go the extra mile, who are going to have those thoughts in their head that you ruminate on and talk with people, and you come up with great ideas because of that. So the next, I went to a medical device company also as a co-op, and I was excited about that. Then I realized all they talked about was money. How much money could they save per part? How much money could they save on this project? And I didn't really care that much about money. I mean, I care about having money, but I don't really care about whether you're going to spend $5 less on this particular part. So I was out of there too. I came to Medtronic because I was excited about the mission of helping people. And it's fundamentally the reason that I've stayed as long as I have, because I continue to be excited about the opportunity to work with to help people, and also just to be really excited about working with a lot of great people. I spent 4 years in the software testing group. It was a great way to learn the products, get my foot in the door, and really just try to understand how everything worked together. After about 4 years, I kind of knew it wasn't my forever home, but on the other hand, I wasn't actively looking for another job. One of the other managers in my group came up to me and said, Julie, there's a job opening in the systems engineering group. You should talk to them. So I took the opportunity, talked with the manager over there. It seemed like it was a good fit. And then I decided to apply for the job, and I took the transfer to the systems engineering group, which is where I've been ever since. One of the things I really like is being able to try new experiences. I've worked on all sorts of different cardiac rhythm management devices, and being able to take one thing from a particular job and apply it to the next job or next project you're doing, I find really fascinating. You never know what you do today, what it might be helpful to you 3, 4, 5 jobs or projects down the road, and you never know what you're working on now will apply to your future self. So always keep in mind, what are those opportunities that you can deal with? So I've worked as an individual contributor, and then today I am a team lead. I am the system engineering lead on Kate's team for one of our larger programs. My job is to basically herd the cats of all the really, really smart technical people where we're trying to make the project. One of the things I find really enjoyable about that is to be able to figure out everybody's perspective and find that common ground among everybody. For example, from an inclusion perspective, one thing that's important to me is to truly listen to everybody on the team. My experience is it doesn't matter if you showed up yesterday, if you're the intern, if you're the engineer with 30 years of experience, everybody has something to contribute to the conversation. And my job as a team lead is to listen to all of those diverse perspectives, try to figure out what makes sense among everybody, and then let's move in that direction forward, and to provide a really great recommendation so that Kate and the rest of the core team can say, yep, that's the right direction to go, we should do it. But the thing, so what I need then is for my team members to be willing to have that voice and be willing to speak up, because They always know something I don't know. And I also expect everybody on this call knows something I don't know. And therefore, if I don't know about it, I can't take action about it. And I really need everybody else to be willing to say what they're thinking. It might be a question that you think is silly, and yet, okay, you ask a question, then somebody else asks a question, then somebody else asks a question, and all of a sudden you've got this great conversation going, and you think of things that no one person would have thought individually. And that's fundamentally why I've stayed where I am so far, is because I just really enjoy that collaboration. Now, no job is perfect. I hate schedule and budget aspects of the project, but I have to put up with it on some level in order to do parts of the job that I do enjoy. And I have definitely enjoyed staying at Medtronic, and I'm looking forward to more great work with Kate and others on the team.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing all that sentiment. And I am also positive that everyone on this call knows something more than I do. That's definitely shared. All right, so I've got one more panelist. Catherine, are you ready to wrap us up? Bring us home?
Lee, if I could just mention, we've only got 10 minutes left. So if we can have this last person be brief, and thank you to the whole Medtronic team who has been responding to questions in the chat, but we won't have time for breakout rooms, obviously, but still like to be able to offer our clients an opportunity to ask questions if they haven't done that in the chat. So if we could just pivot a little bit and handle it that way.
Yes, that is perfect.
Thanks.
Sounds good. So I can be a little bit brief. Hi, everybody. I am Catherine, and I've been with Medtronic for 3.5 years, and excited to just share kind of a couple perspectives from kind of my journey. I guess maybe just due to time, I'll maybe focus on 2 things that I think are kind of interesting and might be helpful as you guys think about kind of how do you navigate some of the challenges that you're working through, or how do you want to kind of continue to grow in your careers. I would say that for me, a couple things have been important throughout my career. And I would say the first is skill building. And I would say from very early on, I was finding free programs to learn how to do typing so that I could get my word count up. And as boring as it is, it, also, as I think back, turned into some really good temp job opportunities, back in the day. And so whether it's typing, whether it's, a Microsoft Office product, whether it's like Excel, those are great tools that are fundamental to really everything that you're going to do in the workplace. And so if there are ways that you can kind of spend time learning some of those things, there's a lot of free avenues to do that. I would suggest doing that because, at least for me, I've found that that's been super beneficial. I am known as somebody on my engineering team who loves Excel and loves macros and loves formulas and can automate anything. And so, you'll find that how good it can be if you can kind of become proficient in some of those. The other thing that I would share is kind of similar to some of the conversations that we had about taking advantage of tuition reimbursement or kind of corporations that pay for things in advance. I would say that the free stuff aspect of kind of growing in your career can't be underlined more. I would say that there are so many opportunities to jump into different training and different kind of opportunities that you wouldn't imagine until you start searching for it and looking for it. And so, like some of the others, I had gone back and gotten my master's degree through my company at the time. Right now, I actually found online Amazon Web Services. They have a cloud practitioner certification. It's a course that usually costs a decent amount of money, but like for females, Amazon actually sponsors it, and you can go through self-paced courses and get your certification covered. And it is one of those things that if you're interested, if you're motivated, you can find things that will help you build in some of those areas that you're interested in. So maybe those are a couple of the things that I would leave you with, just as I think about some of the ways that I've been able to grow and learn in my career along the way.
Catherine, do you happen to have a link for that program you just mentioned by any chance?
I do. I can look it up and send it to you after. Is that Megan?
Fabulous. Yes, it is. Thank you. That would be so terrific. Thank you.
Yep.
Great. Well, thank you so much to all of our panelists today. These Days of Success sessions are one of my very, very favorite things about Dress for Success. And Medtronic, again, has been a leader in being a great place to work, diversity and inclusion, and really just treating employees well. And so it's obvious listening to our panelists here today that they feel that way about the organization as well. So it is always, again, a very inspiring session. 90 minutes goes by so fast. And again, thank you to the team for responding to questions in the chat, but I do want to at least give a few minutes for our clients to ask any additional questions that they may have. So I'll throw it back to our clients for any questions that they may have. All right, well, maybe it sounds like we've been able to answer a lot of questions just in the chat. And I believe that there is now a way to save the chats as well. So what we can do is make sure that we do that so that if you want to go back to the recordings, you'd be able to see those chats and see some of those answers. But again, a lot of the things, the advice that we've been getting is to let your lows ignite you, and to make sure that you're continuing to build your skills. And if you can get into an organization like Medtronic that allows for upfront tuition reimbursement, to not second guess yourself when you think that you're not qualified for something. Don't let that be a limiting factor for you, because I believe it was Leah who said, the men will go right in and say, it doesn't matter, I'll figure it out. We as women tend to doubt ourselves, and it's kind of our Achilles heel. And so would just encourage you not to do that to yourself.
Could I interrupt, Karen? I'm
yes,
so sorry.
Of course.
There's a quick question in the chat from Jada. She was asking about opportunities to cross-train or learn in another department that you might want to work in or gain experience in. Could someone from Medtronic maybe speak to that? What's it like to kind of cross-train? How do you do that and make that work?
I can talk to that. I typed something in chat real quick, but we do have kind of an internal system where different managers will post projects, and then you can go on there. You just get approval from your existing manager to say, I want to use like 10% of my time on this extra project. And so you can get experience in other functions that way. I mentored a woman who was trying to move from finance to marketing, and she did that and then was able to get a job in marketing after that. It was a really cool success story. And then the employee resource groups that many people commented on as well, like that allows you to get new skills. Like if you want to go be like a program manager or a people manager, that lets you like try out those kind of skills, or sometimes communications, or there's different skills you can get from those as well.
And again, it talks about those informational interviews, having an opportunity to just meet with other people within the organization. I'm trying to look at the chat here again. Thanks, Cassie, for catching that one. Any other questions?
And again, I was just kind of monitoring for you. Sorry about that.
Yep. There's been great information about links to open positions and additional feedback. One of the things I'll ask and throw out to the Medtronic team, we really encourage our clients to get involved in LinkedIn. And if you would be willing to share your LinkedIn profiles with our clients. That's really a great way for them to get additional information and just network. I was really impressed to hear, how a number of you networked with Society of Women Engineers or some of the organizational things outside of engineering as well. And it's something that we talk about at Dress for Success as well, is that we offer that support of networking. And so we encourage our clients to do that as well. So again, we really appreciate everything that Medtronic has been doing and all of the answers to the questions and the truly inspiring stories from each of you. Again, the sincerity and recognizing that the path to where you are today was not linear. But one of the things that I think is a really great quote is, where you are a year from now is a reflection of the choices that you make right now. And so with some of the great advice that we received today, I'm hopeful that our clients will be making some great choices today that will lead them to a better place in a year. So Cassie, I'm seeing that there are a number of new messages. Any additional questions?
Thank you. No, these are lots of thank yous. These are lots of people sharing their contact information, their LinkedIn profiles. No, this has been fabulous. It's just a whole lot of kudos because it's been a wonderful, wonderful event.
All right. I will stop the recording.
Thank you.